What is imagery and how do we analyze it? In this practical video, we're going to talk about all of that and also what you don't need to know. First, imagery simply refers to details that stimulate the five senses. That's all it is. Details written down in words that stimulate the five senses: hearing, touch, vision, smell, and taste. Okay, so let's look at a quick example. This is visual imagery because there are visual details. The colored poster, that's too large for indoor display. The size, where it's tacked to the wall. The face on the poster. The fact that the man is 45 years old and there's a mustache. And this is all visual detail. This creates, like a scene in the reader's mind. We're imagining all of this stuff. George Orwell, he's using this detail to make us imagine this as if it was real, okay? Number two, we've got olfactory imagery. This is smell. I'll go over the vocabulary in the next slide, but here, the hallway smelled of boiled cabbage and old rag mats. Again, it's very detailed. The specific smell is described here. The author could have said the hallway smelled bad, but it's not very realistic because you can't imagine it. By adding specific detail about exactly how it smelled, it creates a much more vivid impression to us. Okay, so what do you need to know in terms of the terminology and the specific techniques? So there are different types, subtypes of imagery. Visual imagery is the most important one that you need to know because it probably covers 80% of all types of imagery that you'll see in your exams. Number two is auditory. Number three, so I want you to learn these in terms of order of priority. If you already know visual and auditory, then learn groups 3 and 4. But if you're starting out with number one, that's totally fine. Don't worry about these more difficult ones until you've learnt the basic ones. So number 3, we've got smell, touch, and taste. And here are the fancy words that you can use, the formal language that you can use in your exams to get higher marks. And number 4, these are more advanced. You don't really need these, honestly, but it's just nice to have in the back of your pocket if you run into these in the exam and you want to impress your teachers. Thermal, kinesthetic, and synesthetic, and I've explained these in the brackets. So the real question is, how do we analyze imagery? How do we put it on the page? First, we need to understand a little bit of basics around the theory, okay? Why do writers use imagery in the first place? The writer's purpose. This is crucial. Number one, there are 3 reasons. Number one is to emphasize or highlight something, and that something could be a place, like the hallway, or a person, or an object. Number 2, it is to immerse the reader in the scene, as I mentioned before already. And number 3, it is to establish the setting. This is a more technical way of saying immerse the reader in the scene, is to make us see this physical surrounding as if, we're there, as if we've experienced it. Cool, so writer's purpose is number 1. Number 2 is the effect on the reader, and it's very simple, just a single effect. It is to create a much stronger impression than if imagery wasn't used. Okay, the details are used as an amplification. That's all it is. Simple. So, in terms of practical words that you should use when you analyze imagery, we want to sprinkle in key phrases and words that relate to the author's purpose and the effect. Okay, obviously you want to mention the specific sense that you're analyzing. Smell. For visual, it could be size, color, scene, depicts, detailed, rich, mental image, vivid, vividly portrays. Vivid refers to creating a powerful image in the reader's mind, so that really strongly relates to imagery. Vivid is a favorite word that I like to use, and I totally recommend you guys to use it. Highlights, immerses the reader, establishes the setting. Okay, so let's look at some examples of sprinkling these words into the example of the cabbage, for example. So the author uses the olfactory imagery, there we go, of the pungent smells, there we go, of boiled cabbage and old rag mats to establish a vivid impression of the unpleasant state of the setting. There we go. We've hit it on the nail. We've hit every single requirement here. Number 2, let's look at the mustache example. Orwell depicts visual, a face of extraordinary size, blah blah blah. The visual features such as the mustache, blah blah blah, visual imagery of the odd size, and the sparing visual details. Okay, so obviously there's a lot more to analysis happening here, but here I'm showing you how to specifically analyze imagery using keywords. Now, practice questions. Identify the specific type of imagery, and there can be multiple types of imagery in a single question for each of these. So it gets progressively more difficult as we go from question 1 to question 4. And these are all from 1984, pretty much the first page of 1984. So another thing is that imagery is often used at the beginning of texts or at the beginning of extracts because it helps set the scene. It immerses the reader into this new environment, into this new novel. So in summary, how do we study imagery? Number 1, memorize the most important types first. Visual imagery covers probably 80% of cases. Number 2, it's okay if you forget the type of imagery in your exam. Just write vivid use of imagery, keep it general, that's totally fine. Obviously, it's better if you remember the type, but if you don't, it's not the end of the world. Number 3, remember the common writer's purposes. There were 3 of them. And number 4, use the key phrases and words in your analysis. If you enjoyed this lesson, please leave a comment, give me a like, and subscribe to LitLearn for more lessons just like this one. All right, see you in the next one.